¿Verdad?
You know, as much as I leave, I come back. And once I'm home, the first thing I do is go grab myself just a simple bean and cheese taco.
Yeah.
Just to kind of like remind me again,
it.
this is humble starting beginnings.
Right.
And but you know, funny thing is like growing up, I didn't have bean and cheese tacos. Bean and cheese tacos weren't until San Antonio.
Yeah, they're known for that.
No,
yeah,
our
sure.
breakfast tacos allá eres chorizo bean or papa con huevo. You know, just the more simple. But bean and cheese was not a thing. Not the yellow cheese.
Chef Kirk is the founder of Milpa in San Antonio, as well as the executive chef at Ocho. Chef attributes their love of food to their mother and role model, Carmen. And today in Austin, in our Austin studios right here at the Taqueria Sin Nombre, they are here to help us unpack the differences and surprising overlaps between Tex-Mex and Mexican food. Chef Kirk, welcome to the Taqueria Sin Nombre.
Thank you so much for having me. All the way from San Antonio.
I know, right? You made it. You made it for maybe some cafecito.
We'll need some café de olla.
Some habanero.
That'll wake me up.
That'll wake you up. Well, thank you so much for being on the show, and you know, let's get at it. Let's talk about your early beginnings, right?
Yeah,
what influenced you? Tell us where you're from and your early beginnings.
Well, my papas are from, mi mamá is de Guanajuato, Jaral, which is a very small town by León, Guanajuato. León is known for the leather, of course, you know, very inexpensive, but great quality. And then we grew up in the cerros, you know, so we would take the burros up to, you know, the unpaved roads and kind of hope not to fall.
Yeah,
because
so if not, you're going to end up in the Museo de las Momias.
You know, that used to be a scary one. You used to
really?
have to go through the graveyard.
Oh, man.
Now it's updated, but it used to be super scary as a kid. I was just always scared that they were going to wake up. But yeah, now you end up like the momias. And then my dad being from San Luis Potosí, and then they both ventured, you know, to Nuevo Laredo, the frontera. And then eventually, you know, my mom made it to across the border when she met Mr. Kuykendall. And actually, that's where I got my last name.
Okay.
You know, so Mr. Kuykendall is actually a native San Antonian. And he, you know, kind of showed my mom how to cook.
Yeah.
And so my mom was, you know, raised on not the grandma, you know, that showed her how to cook. And she showed, you know, she learned a little bit from from her aunts. But then once we got to Laredo, you know, my mom widowed. And so, you know, kind of like what made ends meet was my mom cooking. You know, she had 6 kids, wasn't able to kind of like, you know, take them anywhere. So it was just us, you know, being around her, watching her make tamales, make pozole. And before you know it, Carmelitas, you know, was known around the neighborhood to be like that person that brings joy to these like events, these family events.
Yeah.
You know, when you threw a birthday, like even the people you didn't know showed up, you know, to ask for a plate.
So, I'm like, I'm your tío, of course.
Everybody's tío.
Traje un 6.
Everybody's your prima, your primo. And so growing up in Laredo Frontera, that's where I was born and raised, going back and forth to Mexico. So I was also being, you know, introduced to the culture in Guanajuato, where, of course, there's no... it's still kind of like I said, the dirt paved roads. It's all old school. You're seeing the authenticness of Guanajuato.
Sure.
And then we were very lucky to have La Flecha, which is that bus that kind of takes you all over Mexico.
Oh, okay.
And but you still stay in that one place in Guanajuato.
Okay.
And so, you know, from there, my mom kind of went and educated us, at least myself, in the cuisine. You know, I didn't want to try anything. I was always scared. But then I would
You weren't like a chicken nuggets person, were you?
That's funny because if you just saw what I did right now, that was the McDonald's sign. So yes, I would see that's when the arches, the golden arches started in Guanajuato.
Are you serious?
And I remember being like, oh, Mom, what can we Jesse, no, get. So we would travel in a train, you know, from Nuevo Laredo to Guanajuato, and this would take days. But you would go through the mountains, and you would go through the small pueblitos where the señoras would come into the train, and they would like sell you, you know, tacos de canasta, sopes, tamales, all that. And I remember just being like, oh, I'm tired of this food. And I hit myself every day for like not wanting to just really take anything. But I remember my mom giving me little like bird tries, you know. And that's what I remember. But yeah, growing up in Laredo, from there, just kind of like ventured off to San Antonio. Laredo's culinary scene wasn't still as big as it is now, and it's still evolving.
Yeah.
But San Antonio was already kind of creating that foundation for it. You got the culinary schools, you got the different people from different cultures coming in and kind of adding to that melting pot.
Nice.
And that's when I kind of decided, culinary is going to be the direction to go.
Yeah.
Nadie me creía.
No,
No, because you're seen as a cocinero, cocinera, and that kind of like it's always like, where's that going to take you?
Yeah.
But with experiences and with story, it could take you anywhere.
Yeah.
Honestly,
I do believe that, like, the rich foods that we grew up with, that maybe like at some point in our journeys we kind of take for granted, but we are rooted in that no matter what. It's in us. You know what I mean?
It is. We will wake up at 5 a.m. and take the bus, go across to Nuevo Laredo, buy the masa, the tortillas. My mom would just get us tortillas like fresh out, right?
Yeah.
And just a little bit of sal and queso fresco, roll them up, and that would be our breakfast.
That's it.
And we're walking back, eating the tortilla.
Yeah.
And that was such a great just highlight of my childhood. I can't believe we
now you can get that in Austin for $20.
You can actually, and it's James Beard Award tortillas,
right? Oh my God, this amazing tortilla with sal,
with the Virgen de Guadalupe printed on the tortilla, right?
The prince,
right? Yeah, they went from cakes to tortillas, those prints. But no, so it was really neat to have that type of childhood where I was getting everything fresh.
So do you think your mom, what role did she play influencing you?
It was, like I said, you're seeing your mom kind of go through these struggles of just wanting to feed the family and wanting to make ends meet. But little do you see, of I saw the sacrifice. I saw the tears. I saw her arm hurting because we don't have a KitchenAid or a Hobart back then.
Right.
So folding the masa was her actually, and then it's like you start off with 10 pounds. By the time you're at the water, the lard, you're like at 30 pounds. And you're just kind of folding that masa. Right. And so my mom had such a great technique with it because she felt that it had to be airy, it had to be fluffy, and then some of the key points like adding her the tomatillo husk, which is used as a leavener. She would take that water and kind of concentrate it and use that to help the sponginess of the masa. But other than once I started seeing like her techniques. I also started seeing people from the city, the mayor, city from the council arriving to our house, our little casita, you know what I mean? And it's with such respect to my mom.
That's amazing.
And Carmela y sus tamales, Carmela el pozole. And that's when I started seeing like the respect, the how not everybody has that story, and not people have a lot of time to create those stories or experiences for their family. But Carmen was doing that for not just my family, but for families around town. Yeah. And so after that, I was kind of like, I was wowed by it. I was taken in, and my mom was such a loving lady who was embraced in everybody's family, and she's created some kind of story for him. So
beautiful. That's beautiful. And do you think that catapulted you to going to culinary school and what you're doing now?
Well, in high school, and like I said, we weren't a high income family, so we grew up getting that packet of food stamps. The brown, the purple.
I mentioned my government cheese line. I know what you're saying.
You understand. So I got really excited once I started kind of seeing that I was able to play with fire. I was like, wait, what's going on? And I remember, such a bad story, but good story for me. So I started watching that Dennis the Menace where he kind of cooks the marshmallows, and this was at a young age that I started my own little fire.
Sure.
And it was on top of my casita. My mom, I had a little dollhouse that they had made me, and I would sell raspas and all that stuff out of it for some reason. And I was always been
the entrepreneur in you.
It really was. And things that would fall off the truck, type of deal. And I remember, having these marshmallows and roasting these marshmallows and selling these s'mores and selling them to the neighborhood, 25 cents. But that night, I forgot to turn off the fire. And then the bomberos are at 2 in the morning knocking at our house.
No.
And it turns out my casita's in flames, right?
Oh, my God.
So now I have to get my casita
Your
back.
dollhouse.
My dollhouse, yeah. And my business. My business. And then after that, I was kind of like, well, I really like what I was doing, even though I had lost my little house. And then I started up going to carne asadas. I was from there. I started taking my mom's food stamps, and I would go and cut one. And I'd be like, Mom, I got a food stamp. She's like, from the kitchen, está bueno. But she didn't know I got like the 20 or like, And I would go buy carne.
Okay.
And then I would come and I would start my fire. I would start cooking. And then I would invite the friends. And, slowly, like, we had, man.
That's okay.
I was like.
Yeah.
Let me turn off this.
Yeah.
Power off.
Yeah. That's all good. You want to grab some water? You good? Yeah. Yeah. No, you're doing great. Yeah. The story's good.
Okay. So I would invite the my friends over, and we would do the carne asadas. The cool thing is my mom also had like lemon trees, naranja agria trees in the back. Yeah. So we would marinate with naranja agria, the steak or the fajita or the pollo, the limes of course for the tacos. And like I said, we always had corn tortillas, so that's what we would do, and that's how it slowly kind of like got it for me at least. I started seeing like how it brought friends together, how it kind of like, even my mom at this point, she knew I took the 20.
Yeah.
She knows how much a pound of fajita costs.
Yeah, right.
And but she was excited. She just liked that I would stay home and cook. I wasn't that child being out there rebellious or anything like that. Like for me, it was cooking at home. Yeah.
No,
and that's how I ended up getting more involved in it, eventually into culinary school.
Yeah.
And but before that, like, it really was it kind of didn't start off like, hey, I want to start cooking. It kind of like I was led into the journey by just the natural organic of life, itself, where you kind of feel lost. You know that you have a purpose, but you just don't know how to really dig into that passion.
Right.
And, my family was always like very... don't go to restaurants. Don't do this. Don't cook. Go get your, associates in this business degree. Yeah. And I was that child that couldn't stand still in school. I was just like, I'll get the financial aid and then be like, oh, let's go splurging. Wrong move. Now that I know, I'm still paying down student loans. I was like, wrong move.
Yeah.
But no, from there, I was just kind of like, I really wanted to try culinary school. A lot of people have been talking to me about it. And then I had people in the restaurant business that kind of saw that I was able to create recipes and change menus. And corporate was kind of seeing these things. And I was just a dishwasher / maybe cook at this point, And the chef was really like, hey, it looks like you like you arrive on time. You're seeing everything that's going on. I think you should pursue like something with culinary. And, his encouragement really led me into trying to figure that out, and next thing you know, I'm in culinary school.
Nice.
Yeah. And from there, everything just kind of falls in its place.
Yeah. So you have Milpa and you're at Ocho, and so what are some of the flavor profiles that that kind of where you feel like you're thriving? Where you're creating. As
I've traveled and as I've done my exploration with food and with culinary school, so kind of educating us on the history of food, and not just from like from the French, but also we got the Latin studies. So learning from there and learning from all the Spanish, the French and everything. But not only that, but like Mediterranean, Asian. We got Lebanese, a lot of Lebanese immigration that happened in Mexico back in the day. I started kind of like seeing how this food was just not a very like it was immigration. It had evolved from what it is now, and I kind of started noticing more of these things, and that's where my idea of like, okay, not only do I want to learn the story of but I want to learn to the point where I like, why did this happen, and how did the spices change up? The Mexican cuisine. And you got like tacos in Milpa, one of the best things that I feel like I've ever made with Milpa has been tacos árabes. If you're any of your familiar, tacos árabes is like the sister to Al Pastor, but it's the one that started before Al Pastor.
Predecessor. It's the older sister.
It's the older sister. Yes, the older sister, la que nadie sabe, right?
Like, so tell us that story for folks that are listening.
So as I traveled, after culinary school, I went on to open up Hotel Emma, and I sat for a while in that journey, and then I was kind of thinking, what do I really want to do as far as like, get to learn about my culture. And not only that, I had asked my mom, can you show me how to make a mole? And she just, Jesse, I don't have time to make moles.
Yeah, right.
I had 6 kids, and I was like, well, what do you mean? We always had mole. Yeah. She goes, do you know those vasitos? That,
sí.
I was like, I thought that was our
Doña Mole or whatever.
I was like, I thought that was our glass collection.
Yeah, it is the glass collection.
And she's like, no, those are all the mole cups. I was like, I didn't know. I thought these were
concentrate,
like right. And so she would still, everything's a base. I understood that. But once my mom told me about the mole, I was like, well, I really want to learn mole from scratch. So I took off to Oaxaca, where I learned various moles, not only the 7 moles that they have there, but, from chiles to the milpa, which is where the name comes from.
Okay.
And then from there, I decided, well, let me continue my exploration, which I went to Puebla. Once I got to Puebla, I started seeing this, the trompos.
Yeah.
And I started seeing this really massive trompo, like just bigger than myself.
Yeah.
And, a whole line of people.
Crazy.
And they were talking about these tacos árabes. I heard them. I was like, these are a myth to me.
Okay.
And, but once I got there and I saw, and I was just like, I started seeing them on these like flour tortilla, non-bread type of.
Yeah, right.
Which was really interesting because in Oaxaca, I had the ladies asking me how to make flour tortillas. They used the Tia Rosa tortillas, flour tortillas. They're not familiar with flour.
Right, because corn is prevalent more versus the wheat flour.
Yeah. And I was just like, well, you showed me how to make, the milpa from like going and harvesting to making the whole like nixtamalization, and I'll show you how to make flour tortillas. So that was the give and take, right?
Yeah.
But being in Puebla, I saw this and I saw the marinade, and then, I heard more of the history, how like it evolved into pork.
Yeah.
And then, of course, from there we went to Al Pastor.
The chiles, and in a sense that's how it became the Al Pastor.
And one of that dish, what inspired me about it is the tomatillo. So the Al Pastor is marinated with tomatillos, and it's a very acidic to where it kind of like makes the pork tender.
Yeah.
And breaks through that fat. And you know how I told you my mom used to use tomatillos as a leavener. Now I'm seeing this like tomatillo not just be like for this, they would always wonder why my mom would go to HEB and take the husk, but not the tomatillo.
Oh, okay. Because you don't have to pay for it.
She would take like 2 tomatillos and a whole bag of husk. She would put them in the freezer. But the people would be like, lo está limpiando, está bien, Lo está limpiando. So, but, so I started seeing the tomatillo, and I started seeing how like it was part of the marinade too.
Yeah.
And so from there, I just kind of was like, this is what's gonna identify with me. It's gonna be. I didn't want to bring something that already was repeating, that everybody knows, that everybody has a different idea of. I wanted to bring something that was just a little bit overseen. And share the history of it.
Nice.
So that's how that became my signature taco, tacos árabes.
Tacos árabes. I love it. So that actually brings me now to like this whole idea around, you're in San Antonio, grew up along the border, and you have that influence, the Mexicano influence. And then, so let's dig into like this idea around the crossover between Mexican cuisine and Tex-Mex. Right. So what does that mean for you, and how do you like navigate through that?
Sorry.
That's okay.
So, I've definitely, once I moved from Laredo to San Antonio, just even that 2-hour drive, 2.5-hour drive, it was completely different for me. I was, from thinking like, the tortillas are fluffier or thicker. Laredo tortillas are very thin. I guess the closest if you would think about is like Taco Palenque, Taco Palenque has so they do a double flour tortilla on tacos.
Flour.
Double flour. And, then I started kind of like thinking like, well, what's going on in San Antonio that the tortilla is different.
Yeah.
And then we're talking about, so that kind of brings highlights to me like the Tex-Mex, we have the, what is it? Pioneer. We have the Pioneer, which is baking soda, baking powder, and I kind of started thinking like, okay, well, maybe this was starting to be an ad, and which is why like this product didn't used to travel down south,
right?
And so that's where the difference starts coming through, right?
Right.
Laredo's such a desert, desert place. Food was very scarce.
Yeah.
So I see where like flour was more of a, I'm sorry, corn was more of the dominant one over there.
Right.
And then nopales, mesquite, the mesquite flour, a lot of the mesquite was used down there. And then you got to San Antonio and I started seeing the Tex-Mex. I started seeing more of like what they meant by Tex-Mex, carne guisada, which is not like carne en su jugo.
Right.
And then you started seeing like the thickeners with the roux, with flour.
With flour.
With flour. And versus, over there, you just kind of simmer it down to where you add a little bit of masa and that thickens, your broth or the jugo. And so then I started then seeing the Jaliscos, right? Eventually they became the Jaliscos.
Yeah.
And I like to call those Mex-Tex. Those are Mexicanos that have migrated.
Right.
Yes. To San Antonio, and they see that this food, the Tex-Mex, is something that is thriving, that people love, so they adopted it as well. So now I see Tex-Mex and I see Mex-Tex.
Oh, okay, I see.
And so
there's also Texas Mexican, right?
The
indigenous original.
The indigenous original, and then a lot of people ask me like, "What's authentic?" Right? And it's like, well, what's authentic to you and your family? Like, what's your story? There's not really anything that I feel like now that can be considered as authentic, but it's evolved to where like your story.
It goes back to your family and your roots and what you grew up with, all that, And I think people outside the culture sometimes try to like put a box in it. You know what I mean? Box people in a certain category. And so for us, it's like, nah, like we grew up doing both. Like I'm from El Paso, and like we grew up with flour tortillas, right? But also taquitos and some taquitos that aren't taquitos, they're actually flautas.
And that's a whole other tacos dorados, flautas. Yeah.
Okay, so give me a list of like, for folks, on the Taco Net, if you had to do like, say, 5 dishes that were Tex-Mex and 5 dishes that were Mexicano for you in your experience, what would those be?
So I would say for Tex-Mex, you got the puffy taco.
Oh,
you can't go. You got the tamales, but with the chile con queso on top.
Tamales with chile con queso.
Yeah, that's there's a place in Oscars. I hope it's not closing. But yeah, and I love that. That's remember that first being introduced to that.
Okay.
I would say you got the what was the other one? The carne guisada, of course.
Guisada.
You can't go. That's very traditional Tex-Mex. You got I would say brisket tacos. You got that cowboy meats. Tex-Mex. Right. And then I would say the last one, I would think that maybe something along the lines like chalupas, tacos dorados, like flautas. Because in Mexico it's more known as tacos dorados.
Tacos dorados.
So and in Tex-Mex I would say they're known as flautas.
Right.
But it just kind of varies from place,
Or the iconic breakfast taco, no?
También. Breakfast taco. Breakfast taco is definitely one of those things that you don't find as you hit like half away from Texas, they become burritos.
Or they do have tacos mañaneros, they call them in the Monterrey area too. So
mañaneros. Oh, really? Okay.
And then, but also like tacos al vapor. Those are breakfast too. So but the iconic thing is the flour tortilla, right?
The flour tortilla is really
flour tortilla. I think that San Antonio is known for.
It is, there's this place called Cafe Regio, and it's right off McCullough, and I think they have one of the best tortillas, thick, fluffy, pliable. It's one of those tortillas that even if you leave outside, like it's not going to get hard. And I think they have the perfect balance of fat to flour to water, whatever it is. And but you can definitely tell that is a Tex-Mex tortilla.
Okay, now give me your Mexican list.
I would say Mexican, of course. You can't go number 1, mole.
Mole, sí.
Mole, carne en su jugo, molcajetes. I really love arrachera. Arrachera meat is one of my top favorites. Okay. It's tender, it's juicy, and you can serve it in flour or corn. That one can go either way, right?
Yeah, true.
Ceviches, un ceviche aguachile, un ceviche aguachile, and then for morning chilaquiles. You can't go wrong with chilaquiles.
Love that. Good
and then of course this one's kind of like where it kind of takes a little bit of a Tex-Mex Mexican is going to be the huevo rancheros.
Oh yeah, true.
That one can go
True.
either way.
They
It's
can
either
go
going to
either
go on the
way.
chalupa or it's just going to go straight on the plate, right? Like
Now you're seeing chilaquiles in a torta too.
you can, or the what is it, the guajalota, which is going to be the torta
Yeah.
with the tamal in the middle,
Oh yeah,
and
that's
then the
true.
salsas and all that stuff. It's like
you're
carb
getting
and
to
carbs.
now you're getting to the tofurkey
Tofurkey.
categories. I'm like, no, that's too much. Well, Chef Kirk, what's next for you?
You know, I've participated with San Antonio, Visit San Antonio, in a couple of things. You know, representing the LGBTQ community
Beautiful.
in various events. Also showcasing San Antonio cuisine. We are one of the UNESCO cities in the United States, aside from Tucson. So that brings a lot of like culinary, people it becomes a destination, and so involving myself with that, and also being a chef ambassador with UNESCO, also representing the cuisine and the history of food. I want to take a direction where I'm kind of bringing in these educate or people that are wanting to educate us on their cuisine, as well as us showcasing and getting our chefs, our culinarians involved to kind of like
Bit of like that intercambio.
Sí,
right?
sí. You know, I'm in a good space. I'm in a good foundation to be able to kind of unite and bring people together in that kind of sense with Ocho and with Milpa. And so I want to share it. I want to share the story. I want to share the education. And, these new culinarians from schools like Lanier. Lanier has a great program, by the way. Just kind of showcasing them what it is to really, embrace the culture that everybody wants to leave. San Antonio, where they grew up, and I'm like, no, dude, like,
There's
this
so
is where
many
it's at.
gems in your own town, your own city. Sometimes we learn the hard way.
We do.
¿Verdad?
As much as I leave, I come back, and once I'm home, the first thing I do is go grab myself just a simple bean and cheese taco, just to kind of like remind me again. This is humble starting beginnings.
Right.
And but funny thing is, like, growing up, I didn't have bean and cheese tacos. Bean and cheese tacos weren't until San Antonio.
Yeah, they're known for that.
No, our
sure.
breakfast tacos allá eres chorizo bean or papa con huevo. Just the more simple. But bean and cheese was not a thing. Not the yellow cheese.
Yeah, the yellow cheese.
No,
right.
it was queso
Queso
fresco.
fresco.
Totally. Pero no era
So it all depends because like I grew up with más burritos, right?
Okay.
Like bean and cheese burritos,
Paso,
right? But and then with Munster cheese, so like it's like this thing.
You got the fancy cheese.
I know. I think it was a German influence or algo,
It is.
¿verdad?
It is.
No. Well, Chef Kirk, thanks so much. It's been such a great conversation around your journey and kind of where you went from. The train rides to now what you're doing today and bringing the culture with you. I love that. So thank you so much for being on the show.
No, thank you for having me. And thank you for letting me pick your brain as well as pick mine. I was like, it's fun to share our journey and to know that, food is love. So you can, that's where it connects everybody. And the tacos, you can't go wrong with tacos ever.
One taco at a time.
It's a diet. It could be used as your diet, or it could be used as the carbs that brings you into work. Dale más duro. But thank you for having me.
Pues, gracias.
Igual.
Okay.
Gracias.